My daughter transferred $890,000 from my accounts over 2 years. Every single transaction crossed my desk. I'm the bank president. I'm George Patterson, 70 years old, president of Regional Trust Bank in Charleston, South Carolina. What my daughter Emily didn't know when she started stealing my money was simple. Every wire transfer, every cashier's check, every suspicious withdrawal over $5,000 gets flagged by our fraud detection system. And that system reports directly to me. For 24 months, I watched my own daughter systematically rob me while she thought I was too old and confused to notice. She was wrong about the confused part. But I let her think she was right, because sometimes the best way to catch a thief is to let them feel safe enough to get greedy. Please subscribe and drop a comment below to let me know where you're tuning in from. This is how I turned my daughter's theft into federal charges, one flagged transaction at a time. Let me take you back to where this nightmare started. March 15th, 2022, a Tuesday morning. I was sitting in my office on the 3rd floor of Regional Trust's main branch, reviewing the daily fraud alert reports. Standard procedure. I'd been doing it for 12 years, ever since I became president. Most days it was nothing. False positives, legitimate transactions that triggered automated flags because of amount or timing or destination. But that morning, one alert caught my attention. Account ending in 4738. My personal checking account, joint holder transaction, $12,000 wire transfer to Helping Hands Charity Foundation. Authorization, Emily Patterson, Emily, my daughter, 44 years old, marketing director at a pharmaceutical company, salary of $140,000 annually. Married to David, a corporate lawyer who pulled in $190,000. They lived well, maybe too well for their income, but that was their business. I'd taught Emily about money management when she was young. Thought she'd learned. Apparently not. I pulled up the full transaction details. Helping Hands Charity Foundation, account at First National Bank, Atlanta. I didn't recognize the charity name. Didn't remember authorizing any donation. But Emily and I had set up joint access to my checking account 3 years ago, right after my wife Margaret died. Made sense at the time. If something happened to me, Emily could access funds immediately, pay bills, handle emergencies. I'd trusted her, trusted my only child. I called Emily's cell. Straight to voicemail, left a message. Hey, sweetie, saw a charge on the account to a charity I don't recognize. Give me a call when you get a chance. Friendly, casual. Because maybe there was a reasonable explanation. Maybe Margaret had pledged a donation before she died and Emily was following through. Maybe I'd forgotten. 70 years old, memory isn't what it used to be. Emily called back that evening. Dad, sorry I missed your call. Work was crazy. I was at home. The house in Mount Pleasant I'd bought in 1987, 4 bedrooms, waterfront view, worth $1.8 million now. I'd raised Emily here, paid for her college education at Duke University, $240,000 total cost, walked her down the aisle at her wedding, helped with the down payment on her first house, been a good father, thought I'd raised a good daughter. No problem, I said. Quick question about a transaction on the joint account. $12,000 to Helping Hands. Charity? Brief pause, half a second. Most people wouldn't notice, but I'd spent 35 years in banking. You learn to hear the spaces between words, the hesitations that mean someone's calculating what to say next. Oh, that, Emily said. Yes, that was for Mom's memorial fund. Remember? We talked about setting up a charity donation in her name. We'd talked about it, vaguely, at Margaret's funeral, but we'd never decided on an amount or a charity. Never signed any paperwork, never authorized anything specific. Right, I said. Which charity did we choose? Helping Hands? They do breast cancer research. I thought Mom would have wanted that. Margaret died from breast cancer. Stage 4, 16 months from diagnosis to death. So yes, breast cancer research made sense, but something about Emily's tone bothered me. Too smooth, too prepared, like she'd expected this question. Sounds good, I said. Thanks for handling that. Of course, Dad. That's what I'm here for. After we hung up, I sat in Margaret's chair, the recliner where she'd spent her final months, and I thought about that transaction, about Emily's tone, about the half-second pause before she answered. I'm a bank president. I've investigated thousands of fraud cases, wire transfer scams, identity theft, embezzlement. I know what deception sounds like. And my daughter had just lied to me. I went to my home office, logged into the bank's internal systems, looked up Helping Hands Charity Foundation. The account had been opened 8 months ago, February 2022. Primary account holder, Emily Patterson. Not a charity, a personal account with a charity-sounding name. The $12,000 I'd supposedly donated to breast cancer research had gone directly into my daughter's secondary account. I should have confronted her immediately, should have called her back, demanded an explanation. But I didn't, because I needed to know if this was a one-time thing or a pattern, needed to know if my daughter had made a mistake or if she was actively stealing from me. So I did what I always do when something doesn't add up. I started an investigation. The next morning, I called Brian Torres into my office. Brian was our fraud detection manager, 28 years old, sharp kid, computer science degree from Clemson. He'd built our current fraud monitoring system from scratch. If anyone could help me dig into this quietly, it was Brian. Brian, I need you to run a full audit on account 4738, personal account, every transaction for the past 12 months. Brian pulled up the account number. His expression changed when he saw the name. George Patterson. My account. He looked at me carefully. Sir, is there a problem? Just routine review. I want to see transaction patterns, any unusual activity. He knew that wasn't the full story, knew that bank presidents don't ask for routine reviews of their own accounts. But Brian was professional enough not to push. I'll have a report by end of day. The report arrived at 4:47 p.m., 43 pages, every transaction on my checking account from March 2021 to March 2022. Deposits, withdrawals, wire transfers, bill payments, all color-coded by type and flagged by risk level. Brian had done thorough work. Most transactions were normal: mortgage payment, utilities, groceries, car insurance, the routine expenses of a 70-year-old widower living alone. But 7 transactions stood out, 7 wire transfers initiated by Emily Patterson over 11 months, all to different accounts, all with charity-sounding names. May 2021, $8,000 to Veteran Support Network. July 2021, $15,000 to Children's Education Alliance. September 2021, $11,000 to Animal Rescue Coalition. November 2021, $18,000 to Environmental Protection Fund. January 2022, $14,000 to Cancer Research Institute. February 2022, $9,500 to Homeless Outreach Program. March 2022, $12,000 to Helping Hands Charity Foundation. Total, $87,500. Stolen from my account over 11 months while I grieved my wife's death. Each transaction made to look like charitable donations. Each account actually controlled by Emily. I verified every single one through our internal database. 7 accounts, all opened by Emily Patterson. All using variations of legitimate charity names, but registered as personal accounts. My daughter wasn't making a mistake. She was running a systematic theft operation using her own father as the victim. I closed the report and sat in my office until after 7 p.m. The building emptied. Security guard made his rounds. I watched the sunset through my window overlooking downtown Charleston. And I made a decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to confront Emily, not yet. I was going to do what I'd done for thousands of fraud cases over my career. Build an airtight case, document every transaction, trace every dollar, and then, when I had enough evidence that no lawyer could dispute, I would show my daughter exactly what happens when you steal from a bank president. I called Brian back to my office the next morning. Brian, I need you to do something for me. This stays between us. No documentation in the standard fraud system, no reports to compliance unless I specifically authorize it. He looked uncomfortable. What I was asking violated protocol. Fraud detection reports are supposed to be automatic, supposed to go to compliance immediately. But I was the president. I set the protocols. What do you need? Brian asked carefully. Put a silent flag on account 4738. Every transaction over $1,000 initiated by the joint account holder gets reported directly to me. Real-time alerts, but don't block anything. Let every transaction go through. You want to monitor without interdicting? Exactly. Brian understood what that meant. I was building a case, letting someone commit fraud while I documented it. It's a technique we used for organized crime investigations. Let the criminals feel safe. Let them get comfortable. Let them steal enough that the charges become federal instead of state, because $87,500 was serious money. But it wasn't enough for the FBI to get interested. I needed Emily to steal more, much more, and I was going to give her every opportunity to do exactly that. How long do you want the flag active? Brian asked. Until I tell you to stop. The first new alert came 6 days later. March 21st, 2022. $16,000 wire transfer to Education Forward Foundation, another fake charity account controlled by Emily. I watched the transaction process in real time. Authorization at 2:34 p.m. Fraud system flagged it. Brian's alert hit my phone. Transaction completed at 2:41 p.m. My daughter had just stolen another $16,000 while I sat in my office, watching it happen. I didn't call her, didn't ask questions, just added the transaction to my private documentation file. Evidence item number 8. The weeks turned into months. April 2022, May, June. Each month brought new transactions. $9,000 here, $22,000 there. Emily was getting bolder. The amounts were increasing. The frequency was increasing. She thought she'd found an infinite money supply. Thought her confused old father didn't notice the disappearing funds. But I noticed everything. Every transaction, every fake charity name, every lie she told when I occasionally asked about charges. By July 2022, the total theft had reached $197,000. Still not enough. I needed her to cross $250,000. That was the threshold for federal wire fraud charges, mandatory FBI involvement, real prison time, not probation, not community service, actual consequences. Emily called in August. "Dad, we should talk about your finances." That sentence, those exact words. That's when I knew she was planning something bigger, something that required a conversation first, setup, justification, the groundwork for larger theft. "Sure, sweetie, what's on your mind?" "Well, David and I have been worried about you, living alone in that big house, managing all your accounts. We think maybe it's time to simplify things, simplify." Interesting word choice. What kind of simplification? Maybe move some of your money into managed accounts, index funds, something that doesn't require constant attention. You shouldn't have to worry about finances at your age. At my age, I was 70 years old, still working full-time as president of a bank, still sharp enough to catch every fraudulent transaction she'd made. But she wanted me to think I was too old to handle my own money, wanted me to feel incompetent, vulnerable, easy to manipulate. "I'll think about it," I told her. 2 weeks later, Emily showed up at my house with paperwork. "Dad, I met with a financial advisor. He suggested moving $400,000 into a diversified portfolio, better returns than keeping it in checking." She handed me forms from Whitmore Investment Group, account setup documents, transfer authorization, all requiring my signature. I read through the paperwork carefully, every word, every clause. The account would be jointly managed by Emily Patterson and George Patterson. But the fine print gave Emily sole transfer authority for rebalancing and investment decisions. Once the money was in that account, she could move it anywhere without my approval. "This is a lot of money to move at once," I said. "That's why it makes sense." The advisory fee is 1.2% annually. The more you invest, the better the rate. I pretended to consider it, pretended to be an old man worried about making the right decision. Then I signed the forms, signed away $400,000 to a joint investment account that Emily could drain whenever she wanted, because I needed her to commit the big theft, the one that would make the FBI pay attention, the one that would make this worth prosecuting. The money transferred on September 2nd, 2022. $400,000 from my checking account to Whitmore Investment Group account number 88294773. Joint holders, George Patterson and Emily Patterson. Brian's fraud alert hit my phone at 9:17 a.m. I approved the transfer, watched my daughter steal nearly $500,000 in one transaction, and I documented every single step. Then, I did something Emily didn't expect. I called Whitmore Investment Group, spoke to their compliance officer, asked for their fraud prevention protocols, asked how they verified large transfers from elderly clients, asked if they'd received any alerts about unusual activity on account 8829473. They hadn't, because Emily had opened the account online using both our names, made it look legitimate, made it look like a joint decision. But here's what Emily didn't know about banks. We talk to each other. Compliance officers share information. Financial institutions have networks. And when the president of Regional Trust Bank calls another bank's compliance officer expressing concerns about potential elder financial abuse, that compliance officer pays attention. I asked Whitmore to flag the account, monitor any withdrawal attempts over $50,000, report them to me before processing. Don't block, just delay 24 hours and notify me. They agreed. Because elder financial abuse is serious business, and because I was a bank president with 35 years of professional relationships. Emily made her first withdrawal attempt on September 18, 2022. $75,000 from the Whitmore account to her personal checking account. Reason: portfolio rebalancing. The transaction was flagged. Whitmore's compliance officer called me. I authorized the transfer, let it go through, added it to my documentation, evidence item number 47. October brought more transfers, $30,000, $45,000, $28,000, each one flagged, each one reported to me, each one authorized and documented. By December 2022, Emily had moved $312,000 out of the Whitmore account into various personal accounts. The original $400,000 investment had become $88,000, and my daughter thought she was being clever, thought she was stealing from a confused old man who didn't understand modern finance. But I understood everything, every transaction, every fake charity, every investment transfer. I'd been documenting it all, building a case file that was now over 300 pages, bank statements, wire transfer records, account opening documents showing Emily's signatures, communications with Whitmore, everything needed to prove systematic financial fraud. The total theft had reached $509,000, well past the federal threshold, well past the point where the FBI would get involved, well past the point where Emily could claim it was a misunderstanding. Christmas 2022 arrived. Emily invited me to her house for dinner. She'd moved to a bigger place that October, 5-bedroom colonial in Somerville. Purchase price, $740,000. Interesting timing, right after stealing $500,000 from her father. The house was beautifully decorated, professional holiday lighting, expensive furniture, designer kitchen, everything paid for with my money. Emily hugged me at the door. "Merry Christmas, Dad. So glad you could make it." David shook my hand. Their 2 teenagers said hello with the minimal enthusiasm of 16 and 14-year-olds forced to interact with an elderly relative. We sat down to dinner. Prime rib, $80 bottle of wine, real silverware, crystal glasses, the whole performance of affluence. And I smiled and ate and made small talk while calculating exactly how much prison time my daughter was facing. "Dad, there's something we wanted to discuss," Emily said over dessert. "Your house." Here it comes, the next escalation, the next theft, because $509,000 apparently wasn't enough. "What about my house?" "It's a lot for you to maintain. Big yard, multiple floors. What if you fell? What if something happened?" "I'm 70, Emily. Not 90. I'm still capable of climbing stairs." "We know, Dad, but we worry. David and I were thinking maybe it's time to consider downsizing. Move into a retirement community, something with services, activities, people your own age. I like my house." "We understand. But think about the equity. That house is worth at least $1.8 million. You could sell it, live somewhere smaller, have money available for care when you need it, when you need it, not if, when. Like my decline was inevitable and imminent, like I was already halfway to incompetent. This was the setup. The conversation that would justify suggesting I liquidate my biggest asset. My house. The place where I'd raised Emily, where Margaret had died, where I'd built my life. Emily wanted me to sell it so she could access the equity. "I'll think about it," I said. Same response I always gave. The response that let her think I was considering it. The response that kept her comfortable, kept her stealing. I drove home that night thinking about my daughter, about the little girl who used to sit on my lap while I explained how compound interest worked, the teenager who'd asked me for advice on her first checking account, the college student who'd called me crying about money stress and I'd sent an extra $500, the young professional I'd been proud of when she landed her first real job. Somewhere between that girl and this woman, something had broken. Some essential piece of character had failed, and now my daughter was a thief, a con artist, a criminal who happened to be family. But family doesn't get a pass, not in my world, not when it comes to stealing. I'd spent 35 years enforcing banking regulations, catching fraud, protecting customers. I wasn't about to make an exception just because the thief shared my DNA. I'd given Emily enough rope. Now it was time to see if she'd hang herself with it. January 2023 brought the boldest move yet. Emily called asking about my investment accounts beyond the checking and the Whitmore portfolio. Asked if I had any other assets she should know about. For estate planning purposes, she said, for making sure everything was organized. I told her the truth, because at this point, I wanted her to know exactly how much money was available, wanted her to see the full target, wanted her greed to overcome any remaining caution. "I have my 401k from the bank," I said, "about $840,000, and a brokerage account with Fidelity, around $380,000, plus the house. Total assets, approximately $3.1 million, not counting my pension or Social Security. I was comfortable, financially secure, could live well for another 20 or 30 years without touching the principal. But Emily heard those numbers differently. She heard opportunity. She heard inheritance she could access early if she just played it right. "Dad, we really should consolidate those accounts, make everything easier to manage." "Everything's fine where it is, Emily." "But what if something happens to you? What if you have a medical emergency? Someone needs to be able to access these accounts immediately. That's what beneficiary designations are for. Beneficiaries only help after death. What about before? What if you become incapacitated?" She was pushing for power of attorney, for legal authority to access every account while I was still alive, while I was still aware, while I could still watch her steal every remaining dollar. I pretended to consider it. Let the silence stretch. Let Emily think she was convincing me. "Let me talk to my attorney," I said finally. "See what he recommends." I didn't talk to my attorney. I talked to Brian Torres. "How much has she taken so far?" $509,347, Brian replied. 53 separate transactions, 22 different accounts, all controlled by Emily Patterson. Not enough. I need her over 800,000. Why 800? Because at that level, the FBI's Economic Crimes Unit treats it as organized fraud, not just theft, fraud, systematic criminal enterprise. That's when they bring serious resources. That's when district attorneys don't offer plea deals. Brian looked uncomfortable. "Sir, with respect, she's your daughter. She's a thief who's been stealing from her father for almost 2 years. The fact that we're related doesn't change the crime. January 2023 became February, then March. The theft continued. Smaller amounts now. $8,000 here, $12,000 there. Emily had gotten cautious after I'd refused to consolidate accounts. She was taking less per transaction but more frequently. Staying under the radar she thought existed, not knowing that every transaction crossed my desk, that every dollar was documented, that she'd been under investigation by her own father for 11 months. By May 2023, the total reached $673,000. Getting closer. I needed one more big theft, one more major transaction to push it over my target threshold, so I gave Emily exactly what she needed to make that happen. I told her I was sick. The lie came easily. Too easily, maybe. But I'd been practicing deception for 14 months, watching my daughter steal while pretending not to notice, playing the confused old man while documenting every transaction. One more lie wouldn't make a difference. I called Emily on May 18th, 2023. Thursday afternoon. She was at work. Background noise suggested an office, people talking, phones ringing. Normal day for her, about to become very different. Emily, I need to tell you something. Dad? What's wrong? You sound serious. I had some tests done last week. Dr. Morrison found something concerning. Silence. Real silence. Not the calculating pause from before. Actual shock. For half a second, I almost felt guilty. Almost. Then I remembered the $673,000 she'd stolen, and the guilt disappeared. What kind of something? Her voice had changed. Smaller, scared, maybe genuine. Hard to tell anymore. Spots on my lungs. He wants to run more tests. Biopsy. He used the word cancer. Oh my God. Dad, I'm so sorry. When is the biopsy? Tuesday, May 23rd. He'll have results by the end of the week. I'm coming with you. You shouldn't go through this alone. I'll be fine, Emily. It's just tests. No, I'm coming. Text me the details. She showed up Tuesday morning at 7 a.m., drove me to the hospital, sat in the waiting room during the procedure, held my hand afterward when I was groggy from sedation. For 3 hours, she was the daughter I remembered, the one who cared, the one who loved her father for reasons beyond his bank account. It almost made me forget she was a thief. Almost. We didn't talk much on the drive home. I played up the exhaustion from sedation, let my head rest against the window, watched Emily's reflection in the glass. She kept glancing at me. Worried looks, genuine concern, or maybe just concern about her primary income source potentially dying before she could steal the rest. Dad, we need to talk about practical things, Emily said as we pulled into my driveway. If the results are bad, if it's cancer, we need to make sure everything is organized. There it was. 3 hours of playing concerned daughter, and now back to business, back to accessing my money. But this time with medical emergency as justification. I'd given her the perfect excuse. Terminal illness, elderly father, urgent need to consolidate assets before treatment begins. Before incompetence sets in. Before death becomes imminent. What kind of organization? I asked. Power of attorney, medical directives, making sure someone can make decisions if you can't. Access accounts if you're hospitalized. Handle things, meaning handle my money, meaning drain every remaining account before I died or recovered enough to stop her. This was exactly what I'd expected, exactly what I'd planned for. The biopsy was fake. Dr. Morrison was my personal physician and my golf partner for 15 years. He'd agreed to help. Fake medical reports, fake test results, fake cancer scare. All to push Emily into one final theft large enough to guarantee federal prosecution. Let me think about it, I said. Wait for the test results first. Dad, we can't wait. If it's cancer, treatment starts immediately. Chemo, surgery. You'll be in no condition to handle paperwork. We need to set things up now. She was right about one thing. If this were real, waiting would be stupid. But it wasn't real. It was a trap. And Emily was walking right into it. I let her push, let her make her case, let her think she was convincing a sick old man to make smart decisions. Then I agreed, because the whole point was to agree, to give her access, to let her commit the theft that would end her freedom. Okay, what do I need to sign? Emily had the documents ready by Friday, May 26th, 3 days after the biopsy. Power of attorney papers, medical directives, account access authorizations, all printed and organized in a folder. She'd been prepared, had these ready to go, just waiting for the right moment, the right crisis, the right excuse. My fake cancer diagnosis was her golden opportunity. We met at my house. Emily brought David, her husband, the corporate lawyer who pulled in $190,000 annually. The man who'd stood beside her at our family Christmas dinner in the house they bought with my stolen money. He smiled and shook my hand, pretended to be concerned about my health. I'd always thought David was a decent guy, bit ambitious, bit materialistic, but basically decent. Now I realized he knew, had to know. You don't hide $673,000 in stolen money from your spouse. You don't buy a $740,000 house without your husband asking where the down payment came from. David knew Emily was stealing from me, and he'd said nothing, done nothing, just enjoyed the benefits. "George, I'm so sorry about the diagnosis," David said. "Emily told me. We're here to help however we can." Help. Everyone wanted to help. Help me organize, help me plan, help me move money into accounts they could access, help themselves to my life savings. I signed the documents, every single one. Power of attorney giving Emily authority over all financial decisions, medical directives giving her healthcare decision rights, account access forms for my checking, savings, and investment accounts. The whole package. Everything a daughter would need to rob her dying father blind. "Thank you, Dad," Emily said, collecting the signed papers. "This is the right thing. Now you can focus on getting better without worrying about bills or finances." "I appreciate it, sweetheart." After they left, I called Brian Torres. "She has full power of attorney now. Monitor everything, every account, every transaction. The moment she moves more than $50,000, I want to know immediately." "Understood. Are you sure about this? Once she has POA, she can do significant damage." "That's the point. I need her to commit major fraud, one big theft that makes this federal. She's been stealing carefully for 2 years, small amounts, spread across multiple fake accounts. Now I'm giving her permission to go big, and she will. Greed always escalates." The test results came back Monday, June 5th. Dr. Morrison called with the news Emily was expecting. Cancer, stage 2 lung cancer, treatment recommended immediately, chemo starting in 2 weeks, prognosis guarded but hopeful, survival rate 60% with aggressive treatment. Everything Emily needed to hear to justify what she was about to do. She called me that evening. "Dad, I heard from Dr. Morrison. I'm so sorry, but we're going to fight this. You're going to beat this." "I hope so." "Listen, I've been thinking. With treatment starting soon, you're going to need resources. Chemo is expensive. Even with insurance, there are co-pays, medications, maybe alternative treatments. We should liquidate some assets now. Get cash available. Liquidate assets. Interesting phrase. Very clinical, very businesslike. Not emotional, not personal. Just practical financial planning for a dying father's medical care. Except the cash wouldn't go to medical care. It would go to Emily's accounts, to pay off the mortgage on her stolen house, to fund her lifestyle, to disappear into the same black hole that had swallowed $673,000 already." "What kind of liquidation?" I asked. "Your Fidelity account, the $380,000 brokerage account. It's invested in stocks and bonds. Market's been volatile. Better to sell now, lock in gains, have cash available. I can handle the transactions. Transfer money to your checking account where it's accessible." Accessible to her, she meant, the checking account we shared, the account she'd been using to steal from since March 2022. She wanted me to sell $380,000 in investments and move it somewhere she could drain it immediately. This was the big move, the massive theft I'd been waiting for. The transaction that would push her total over $1 million, the number that would make FBI agents smile. "Do what you think is best," I said. "I trust you." Those words. I trust you. They felt like poison on my tongue. Because I didn't trust her. Hadn't trusted her for 14 months, but I needed her to believe I did. Needed her to feel safe making the massive transfer. Needed her to commit the crime that would end her freedom. The Fidelity account sale processed June 8th. $380,000 converted to cash, transferred to my checking account. Brian's fraud alert hit my phone at 10:17 a.m. I watched the money arrive, watched the balance in my checking account jump to $423,000, watched it sit there for exactly 4 hours. Then Emily made her move. 2:31 p.m. wire transfer initiated. $350,000 from checking account ending in 4738 to account at First Southern Bank. Account holder, Coastal Property Management, LLC, a company that didn't exist, a company Emily had registered 2 weeks ago specifically to receive this transfer, a company whose sole owner was Emily Patterson. A company created for no purpose except to steal $350,000 from her dying father. Brian called immediately. "Sir, large transaction flagged. Do you want a block?" "Let it go through. Document everything. That's $350,000. Are you certain?" "I'm certain. Let her take it. Let her think she got away with it." The transfer completed at 2:47 p.m. My checking account balance dropped to $73,000. Emily's fake property management company received $350,000. Total theft, $1,023,000. More than $1 million stolen over 26 months. Systematic, calculated, organized fraud. Exactly what I needed for federal prosecution. That evening, I called Emily to thank her for handling the financial arrangements. Thanked my daughter for stealing $350,000 while I supposedly prepared for cancer treatment. She sounded relieved, relaxed, like a huge weight had lifted. The weight of wondering if she'd get caught, the weight of small, careful thefts. Now she'd gone big, taken the massive score, and her father had thanked her for it. "Of course, Dad. That's what family does. We take care of each other, take care of each other." I almost laughed, almost told her right then what was coming, what I'd been documenting, what she'd walked into. But I didn't, because the investigation wasn't finished, the case wasn't complete. I needed one more piece. I needed Emily to spend the money, needed her to demonstrate that this wasn't a mistake or confusion. This was intentional theft, followed by intentional use of stolen funds. So I waited, watched, documented. Emily spent $48,000 in 3 days. New car, BMW X7, $92,000 sticker price, $48,000 down payment using funds from Coastal Property Management LLC. Paid in cash, bank check from First Southern Bank, VIN number documented. Purchase date June 11, 2023. Sales records showing Emily Patterson as buyer. Perfect evidence. She'd stolen money from her dying father and immediately bought a luxury vehicle. No jury would find that sympathetic. But Emily wasn't done. 2 weeks later, another transfer. $75,000 from Coastal Property Management to investment account at Morgan Stanley. Retirement account in Emily's name. She was investing my stolen money for her future, planning for retirement using funds taken from her father under false pretenses. The evidence file was now 427 pages, every transaction documented, every fake account traced, every lie recorded, bank statements, wire transfer receipts, account opening documents, corporate filings for fake LLCs, car purchase records, investment account statements, everything needed to prove systematic, organized, intentional fraud. I had enough, more than enough, time to end this. June 29, 2023. I called FBI office in Charleston, asked for Economic Crimes Unit, got transferred to Special Agent Michael Chen, 38 years old, 15 years with Bureau, specialized in financial fraud and elder abuse cases. I'd met him twice before at banking industry conferences. He remembered me. "Mr. Patterson, what can I do for you?" "I need to report a fraud case. Elder financial abuse, wire fraud, money laundering, total amount stolen, $1,023,000 over 26 months. That's significant. Who's the victim? Me. Silence. Long silence. Different from Emily's calculating pauses. This was surprise, confusion. Bank presidents don't usually call FBI reporting themselves as fraud victims. "I'm sorry, can you repeat that?" "I'm the victim. My daughter has been systematically stealing from me since March 2022. I've been documenting everything. I have complete evidence files, bank statements, wire transfer records, corporate documents for fake companies. I need to file formal charges." "Mr. Patterson, you're saying your daughter stole over $1 million from you, and you documented it instead of stopping it?" "Correct. I needed her to cross federal thresholds. Needed the case to be strong enough that district attorneys don't offer plea deals. I let her steal enough to guarantee prison time." Another silence. "That's unusual. I'm a bank president. I investigate fraud for a living. I know what prosecutors need to win cases. I built them a perfect case." Agent Chen met me at the bank the next day, Friday morning, 9 a.m., my office, 3rd floor. I'd prepared everything, 4 folders, organized chronologically, every document labeled, every transaction highlighted, a roadmap for prosecution, timeline on first page, summary of stolen amounts, list of fake accounts, corporate registrations for shell companies, everything. Agent Chen spent 3 hours reviewing the files, took notes, asked questions, pulled up supporting documents on his laptop, cross-referenced account numbers, verified corporate filings. By noon, he'd seen enough. This is the most thoroughly documented fraud case I've ever encountered. You did our job for us. I know what you need. I gave it to you. Why wait so long? Why not report it after the first theft? Because $12,000 doesn't get federal attention. Local DA handles it. Probation, community service, slap on wrist. I needed Emily to commit crimes serious enough to matter. Needed her to face real consequences. She's your daughter. She's a thief. Relationship doesn't change the crime. Agent Chen closed the folders. We'll open formal investigation. Interview your daughter. Serve warrants, 16 accounts. This will become public. Everyone will know what she did. Good. Everyone should know. And everyone will know you let it happen. That you watched your daughter steal for 2 years without stopping her. Some people won't understand that. I don't need them to understand. I need them to know that stealing has consequences, even when the thief is family, especially when the thief is family. The FBI investigation moved quickly. Agent Chen wasn't alone. He brought in 2 other agents, Sarah Martinez and James Wilson, financial crime specialists. They subpoenaed Emily's accounts, all of them. Every fake charity, every shell company, every investment account funded with stolen money. They interviewed Whitmore Investment Group, First Southern Bank, Morgan Stanley, built independent verification of everything I'd documented. They served warrant on Emily's house July 12th, Wednesday morning, 6 a.m. I wasn't there, but Agent Chen called me afterward with details. Emily had been shocked, confused, claimed she didn't understand what they were talking about, said her father had given her permission to manage his money, said she was trying to help, said it was all a misunderstanding. The agents showed her the evidence, 427 pages, every transaction, every fake account, every theft documented in perfect chronological order, showed her the shell companies she'd created, the fake charities, the investment transfers, the BMW purchase, everything. Emily's story changed. Suddenly, she remembered. Suddenly, she'd been planning to pay it back. Suddenly, she'd only borrowed the money temporarily. Suddenly, she was very sorry and wanted to make things right. The agents arrested her anyway, charged her with wire fraud, elder financial abuse, money laundering, operating criminal enterprise, 4 federal charges, bail set at $500,000. She couldn't make it, couldn't access the money she'd stolen because it was all frozen, couldn't borrow from friends because everyone now knew what she'd done. She called me from county jail. July 13th, evening, collect call. I accepted the charges, heard her voice, scared, small, desperate. Dad, please, tell them it was a mistake. Tell them you gave me permission. Tell them to drop the charges. I'd prepared for this moment, knew it was coming, knew Emily would call begging for mercy, expecting family loyalty, expecting me to save her the way I'd always saved her, the way I'd paid for Duke, the way I'd helped with the house down payment before she started stealing, the way parents save their children. But some children can't be saved. Some children need to face consequences. Emily, I documented 26 months of theft. I have recordings of you lying about fake charities. I have evidence of shell companies you created specifically to steal from me. I gave FBI everything they needed to convict you. You gave them? You've been investigating me? Since March 2022, since the first transaction to Helping Hands Charity Foundation, I've known about every theft. Every fake account, every lie. I let you continue because I needed you to steal enough to guarantee federal prosecution. You let me? You could have stopped me. I'm the president of the bank you were stealing from. Of course I could have stopped you. I chose not to. I chose to build a case instead. Silence. The kind of silence that comes with complete understanding, complete betrayal, complete loss. You set me up. You stole from me. I documented it. Those aren't the same thing. I'm your daughter. You're a thief who happens to be my daughter. The fact that we're related doesn't give you permission to rob me. What about David? What about the kids? What happens to them while I'm in jail? That's not my problem. You should have thought about them before you stole $1 million. Mom would be ashamed of you. That line, that specific line, using Margaret's memory as a weapon, as manipulation, as one final attempt to make me feel guilty, to make me question my choices, to make me save her. It didn't work. Margaret died from cancer while Emily stole the first $87,500. Emily was taking money during her mother's final months, using grief as cover, using my distraction as opportunity. Margaret would be ashamed, but not of me. Mom would be ashamed of what you became. A thief, a liar, a daughter who stole from her dying father. Don't use her memory to justify your crimes. I hate you. You should have thought about that before you stole from me. Emily hung up, or the jail system disconnected. Either way, the call ended. Last conversation I'd have with my daughter as a free woman. Next time I'd see her would be in federal court, at her sentencing hearing, where a judge would decide how many years she'd spend in prison. The trial date was set for September 18, 2023. But Emily never made it to trial. Her attorney saw the evidence, saw the 427 pages of documentation, saw the recordings, saw the bank statements and wire transfer records, saw the impossibility of winning, advised Emily to take a plea deal. The deal was harsh. District attorney wanted to make an example. Elder financial abuse was epidemic. People stealing from aging parents, children draining accounts, families destroying themselves over inheritance. Emily's case was perfect for sending a message. Daughter steals from father. Father is bank president who catches her. Father cooperates fully with prosecution. Evidence is overwhelming. No sympathy, no excuses, just consequences. Emily pled guilty on August 22, 2023. All 4 charges: wire fraud, elder financial abuse, money laundering, criminal enterprise. Sentencing hearing scheduled for October 15th. Federal guidelines suggested 8 to 12 years. With her cooperation and guilty plea, maybe 6 to 8. Still significant time. Still years away from her children. Still a felony conviction that would follow her forever. But she didn't have a choice. Trial meant certain conviction and longer sentence. Plea deal was her only option. I attended the sentencing hearing, sat in the gallery, 3rd row, watched Emily stand before federal judge Patricia Morrison, watched her cry, watched her apologize, watched her beg for mercy. The judge was unmoved, read the evidence summary, described the systematic nature of the theft, the planning, the fake companies, the exploitation of a supposed medical crisis. The judge called it particularly cruel exploitation of a parent-child relationship and calculated fraud demonstrating clear criminal intent. Sentencing: 7 years federal prison, $1,023,000 restitution, 5 years supervised release after prison, no early parole eligibility. Emily collapsed. Her attorney caught her. David sat in the front row, head in his hands. Their children weren't in the courtroom. Probably better that way. Better they didn't see their mother sentenced to 7 years. Better they didn't hear the judge describe their mother as a calculating criminal who exploited her dying father. They'd learn the truth eventually. But not today. I left the courthouse and drove back to the bank. Back to my office on the 3rd floor. Back to my desk where I'd spent 26 months documenting my daughter's crimes. Brian Torres knocked on my door an hour later. "Sir, I heard about the sentencing. Are you okay?" "I'm fine. 7 years is a long time. She stole over $1 million. 7 years is appropriate. She's your daughter." Everyone kept saying that, like it changed something, like family relationship erased criminal behavior, like I should have looked the other way because we shared DNA. I didn't see it that way. Never had. Margaret and I raised Emily to understand right from wrong, taught her about integrity, about honesty, about respect. She'd learned those lessons. Then she'd chosen to ignore them, chosen to steal, chosen greed over character. Those were her choices, not mine. I'd simply documented the consequences. "Brian, I need you to do something for me." "Of course. What do you need?" "Pull every fraud case from the past 5 years where family members stole from elderly relatives. I want to know prosecution rates, conviction rates, sentencing averages, everything." "Why?" Because if my daughter can steal $1 million from me, a bank president, imagine what's happening to elderly people without resources, without financial literacy, without the ability to detect and document fraud. I want to know how bad the problem really is. Brian brought the report 3 days later. It was worse than I'd imagined. Elder financial abuse cases up 47% over 5 years. Average amount stolen, $120,000. Prosecution rate, less than 10%. Most families don't report, don't want to involve police, don't want family members arrested. Let the theft happen. Let the abuser walk away. Let the pattern continue. My case was unusual, not because Emily stole, that happens constantly, but because I'd reported it, documented it, prosecuted it. Most victims don't. Most victims stay silent, protect their abusers, choose family loyalty over justice. I understood that impulse, but I didn't agree with it. Because silence enables, silence encourages. Silence tells thieves that family relationship is permission to steal. And I refused to send that message. Regional Trust Bank established the Elder Financial Protection Program in November 2023. Free financial monitoring for customers over 65, automated fraud alerts, monthly account reviews, educational seminars on recognizing exploitation, prevention resources. Everything I wished had existed for other families. Everything that might have stopped Emily if she'd been stealing from someone else. We hired 2 dedicated staff members, trained every branch manager on warning signs, created protocols for suspicious activities, built a program that would protect vulnerable customers from the thing that had destroyed my family. The program launched with media coverage. Local news ran stories. My daughter's case was mentioned. The bank president who prosecuted his own daughter. Some people called me heartless, said I should have forgiven her, said family matters more than money. I didn't respond to critics, didn't defend my choices, just kept building the protection program, kept helping other families avoid what mine had gone through. December 2023 marked 20 months since I'd discovered Emily's first theft, 7 months since her sentencing. The stolen money was being recovered. Federal government had seized Emily's accounts. The BMW was sold at auction. The house in Somerville was in foreclosure. Everything purchased with stolen funds was being liquidated. Restitution payments would continue for years, probably decades. Emily would be paying back her crime for the rest of her life. I thought about that sometimes, about my daughter in federal prison, about her children growing up without their mother, about David struggling to explain to teenagers why their mom was in jail, about holidays and birthdays and graduations happening without Emily present, about the life she'd destroyed because she was too greedy to be satisfied with her own success. Then I thought about the alternative, about letting her get away with it, about enabling her theft, about teaching her that family relationship meant immunity from consequences, about the message that would send to her children, about the pattern that would continue. And I knew I'd made the right choice, the only choice, because some lessons can only be taught through consequences. Some people only learn through loss. And sometimes the most loving thing a parent can do is let their child face the results of their own actions, even when those results mean prison. 2 years later, I'm still the president of Regional Trust Bank. Still working, still sharp. The cancer diagnosis was fake, but the lesson was real. And Emily is still in federal prison, 4 years and 3 months remaining on her sentence, she writes occasionally. Letters from Federal Correctional Institution in Tallahassee. They started arriving 6 months after sentencing, short at first, angry, blaming me for ruining her life, accusing me of entrapment, claiming I should have stopped her sooner if I really cared. I didn't respond to those letters, didn't engage with the blame shifting, didn't validate the victim mentality, just filed them away in the same folder as her fraud documentation, evidence of who she'd become. The tone changed after a year. Less anger, more reflection. Emily started taking responsibility, started admitting what she'd done was wrong, started understanding that consequences weren't punishment, they were results, natural outcomes of deliberate choices. She apologized in letter number 17, 4 pages, handwritten, detailed accounting of every theft, every lie, every moment she'd chosen money over integrity. She didn't ask for forgiveness, didn't expect reconciliation, just wanted me to know she finally understood. I still didn't respond. Because words on paper don't erase actions. Apologies don't restore trust. Emily would serve her full sentence, would pay full restitution, would live with a felony conviction for the rest of her life. Those were the consequences she'd earned. My forgiveness wouldn't change them, wouldn't reduce them, wouldn't matter. But I kept the letters, all 23 of them, filed chronologically, dated and documented. Maybe someday they'd mean something, maybe after she's released, after she's rebuilt her life with the pieces that remain, after she's proven through years of honest living that the person who stole from me is gone. Maybe then we could talk. Maybe then forgiveness would matter. But not today. Not while she's still serving time for crimes I documented. Not while the investigation I built is still being used as a training case for FBI agents learning to prosecute financial fraud. The Elder Financial Protection Program grew beyond anything I'd imagined. Started at Regional Trust Bank, expanded to 12 other banks across South Carolina, now operating in 47 financial institutions across 6 states, free monitoring for customers over 65, fraud detection, account reviews, educational seminars, prevention resources, everything designed to catch what I caught, to stop what Emily did, to protect vulnerable people from family members who see them as assets instead of humans. We've identified 247 active fraud cases in 2 years. Adult children stealing from parents, caregivers accessing accounts, financial exploitation disguised as helping. Some cases were small, a few $1,000s. Some were massive. One case in Atlanta involved $2.3 million stolen over 4 years. Every single case was reported, documented, prosecuted, because the program had one rule. No exceptions for family, no exceptions for relationships, no exceptions for any reason. Steal from an elderly person, face consequences every time, no matter who you are. The statistics validated everything. Protection Program customers reported 87% fewer fraud incidents than general population. Those who did experience fraud had it detected average of 12 days after first transaction. Compare that to national average of 14 months. Early detection meant smaller losses, better recovery rates, actual consequences for thieves instead of silent family acceptance. The program saved customers an estimated $18.7 million in 2 years. But the real impact wasn't measured in dollars. It was measured in families not destroyed, in relationships not poisoned, in trust not shattered. Because sometimes preventing a crime is more valuable than prosecuting one. David divorced Emily 8 months after her sentencing. Filed papers while she was in prison, claimed irreconcilable differences. The reality was simpler. He couldn't handle the stigma, couldn't handle explaining to his law firm partners why his wife was a federal inmate, couldn't handle the social consequences of being married to a convicted felon. The divorce was finalized in March 2024. David got the house, not the one Emily bought with my money. That was seized. The previous house. The one they'd owned before the theft started, the one that was actually legitimate. He got custody of the children, full custody. Emily would get supervised visitation after release, 1 weekend per month, supervised, like she was dangerous, like her own children needed protection from her. Maybe they did. Maybe being a thief made her unsafe in ways beyond physical danger. Maybe her children deserved better than a mother who'd steal from her dying father. I see David occasionally. Brief encounters, bank business. His law firm handles some corporate accounts. We're professional, polite, surface-level cordial. He doesn't apologize for Emily, doesn't explain or justify. Just acts like those years didn't happen. Like he wasn't living in a house bought with stolen money. Like he didn't know his wife was robbing her father for 2 years. I don't push it. Don't confront him. Because David's guilt is his to carry. His conscience is his to manage. I documented Emily's crimes. Her husband's knowing participation isn't my concern. The grandchildren are 15 and 17 now. I haven't seen them since the sentencing. Haven't called, haven't visited, haven't sent birthday cards or Christmas gifts. Not because I don't care, but because they're Emily's children. And Emily's choices created this separation. Created the impossibility of normal grandparent relationships, created the loss that extends beyond her prison sentence into every life she touched. Those kids lost their mother to prison, lost their grandfather to the same crime, lost their family to their mother's greed. That's Emily's fault, not mine. I didn't create the situation, I just documented it. Margaret's grave is 3 miles from my house. Charleston Memorial Gardens. Section C, plot 247. I visit every Sunday. Bring fresh flowers, sit on the bench nearby. Tell her about the bank, about the protection program, about the families we've helped, about the fraud we've prevented. I don't talk about Emily, don't discuss the trial or the sentencing or the letters from prison. Margaret died before seeing what our daughter became, before watching her steal during her mother's final illness, before witnessing the complete moral collapse. That's probably for the best. Margaret would have been devastated, would have blamed herself, would have spent her final months questioning every parenting decision we'd made. Instead, she died believing Emily was successful, believing our daughter was happy, believing we'd raised her right. Ignorance wasn't bliss, but it was better than truth. I thought about retirement sometimes, about stepping down as bank president, about moving somewhere quiet, about leaving Charleston and all its memories behind. But I didn't, because the work mattered, the protection program mattered, the message mattered, the message that family relationship doesn't excuse criminal behavior, that love doesn't mean enabling, that sometimes the most responsible thing a parent can do is let their child face consequences. That message needed to stay visible, needed to stay loud, needed someone willing to stand behind it regardless of personal cost. Regional Trust Bank's Board of Directors voted to name the program after me in January 2025, the Patterson Elder Financial Protection Initiative. My name attached to the thing built from my daughter's crime, my legacy connected to her betrayal. Some people thought that was strange, thought I should want distance from Emily's fraud, thought I should prefer the program to exist separately from family history. But I disagreed, because Emily's crime and the program's purpose were inseparable. Her theft created the need. Her greed demonstrated the vulnerability. Her prosecution proved that consequences matter. My name on the program wasn't about pride. It was about accountability, about saying publicly that I'd chosen prosecution over protection, chosen justice over family loyalty, chosen to do the right thing even when it cost everything. The phone call came March 3rd, 2025. Brian Torres. Urgent tone. Sir, we have a situation. One of our protection program customers, Mrs. Helen Richardson, 72 years old. Her son has been accessing her accounts. We've detected $43,000 in suspicious transfers over 3 months. Have you contacted Mrs. Richardson? That's the issue. She knows. She gave him permission. She says her son is helping her pay bills because she gets confused. But the transfers don't match any bills. They're going to his personal account, to car dealerships, to credit card companies. He's spending her money on himself while claiming it's for her expenses. The pattern was familiar. Exactly what Emily had done. Exactly what adult children do to elderly parents constantly. Get permission to help. Get access to accounts. Then redirect money for personal use. Start small. Escalate over time. Justify it as helping, as managing, as protecting, all while systematically stealing. What does Mrs. Richardson want to do? She doesn't want to report it, doesn't want her son arrested, doesn't want to cause family problems. She's asking us to close the fraud alert, says we're mistaken. I'd heard this story before, seen it in dozens of protection program cases. Elderly parents who knew they were being robbed, who chose family peace over justice, who enabled theft rather than face consequences, who sacrificed their financial security to avoid confrontation. I understood the impulse, understood the fear of losing relationships, understood the desperate hope that love would eventually overcome greed, but understanding didn't mean agreeing. Schedule a meeting. Mrs. Richardson comes to my office, tomorrow morning if possible. Mrs. Richardson arrived at 10 a.m. Small woman, white hair, nervous hands, accompanied by her son James, 49 years old, confident smile, expensive watch, the watch probably bought with his mother's money. Same pattern, same theft, same justifications waiting to be spoken. Mrs. Richardson, I said, thank you for coming. I wanted to discuss the alerts on your account. It's a mistake, she said quickly. James helps me with bills. Sometimes the system flags things that are actually legitimate. I understand. But I've reviewed the transactions. $43,000 transferred to James's personal account over 3 months. None of those transfers correspond to your bills or expenses. They correspond to his car payment, his credit card debt, his personal purchases. James leaned forward. With respect, Mr. Patterson, you don't know my mother's full financial situation. She has expenses you're not aware of. I manage everything for her. I'm the president of this bank. I'm aware of every account your mother holds, every bill she pays, every legitimate expense. The $43,000 you've taken isn't helping her. It's theft. That's a serious accusation. It's an accurate description. You're stealing from your mother while calling it help. That's the definition of elder financial abuse. Mrs. Richardson started crying, quiet tears, shoulders shaking. James put his arm around her, protective gesture. But protection from what? From me, from truth, from consequences? Mom, let's go. We don't have to listen to this. Yes, you do, I said. Because Mrs. Richardson is a protection program customer. That means attempted fraud gets reported, documented, investigated, whether she wants it or not. You can't do that without her permission. Actually, I can. The protection program agreement she signed includes mandatory reporting clauses for suspected abuse. It's designed specifically for situations like this, where victims are too afraid or too pressured to report crimes themselves. Mrs. Richardson looked up at me. Red eyes, devastated expression. Please don't report my son. He's all I have. If he goes to jail, I'll be alone. Alone. That word. That fear. That's what kept thousands of elderly people silent while their children robbed them. Better to be stolen from than abandoned. Better to be financially exploited than emotionally isolated. Better to enable crime than risk losing the relationship. I understood that fear, understood the calculation, but I also understood something Mrs. Richardson didn't. James wasn't protecting her from loneliness. He was causing it, creating isolation, making her dependent, stealing her security while pretending to provide it. That wasn't family. That was exploitation. Mrs. Richardson, my daughter stole over $1 million from me. I documented every transaction, reported her to FBI, testified at her sentencing. She's currently serving 7 years in federal prison. Silence. Both of them stared at me. Mrs. Richardson stopped crying. James's confident smile disappeared. I did that because I love my daughter. Because I wanted her to face consequences before she destroyed herself completely. Because enabling her theft would have taught her that family relationship means immunity from responsibility. I couldn't let that lesson stand, so I prosecuted her, and I'd make the same choice today. But she's your daughter, Mrs. Richardson whispered, and James is your son. Relationship doesn't change theft, doesn't excuse crime, doesn't make exploitation acceptable. What he's doing to you is wrong. Letting him continue is worse, because it teaches him that stealing from family is acceptable as long as you call it helping. I pulled out a folder, the same folder I'd prepared for FBI 2 years ago, modified for Mrs. Richardson's case, transaction records, account statements, evidence of systematic theft, everything needed to prosecute. You have a choice. Report this now while the amount is $43,000, or wait until it's $100,000 or $200,000, or until your accounts are empty and James moves on to another victim. Because thieves don't stop voluntarily. They stop when they're caught, when consequences force them to stop. Mrs. Richardson looked at her son, at the expensive watch, at the confident demeanor cracking, at the man who'd been robbing her while pretending to help. Is it true? Have you been stealing from me? James didn't answer immediately, calculated his response, weighed his options, then chose honesty, or something close to it. I borrowed money. I was planning to pay it back. When? When things improved, when I got my finances sorted out. So you stole from me to fix your financial problems, problems I didn't even know you had. I didn't steal. You gave me access to your accounts. I gave you access to help me. Not to help yourself. That distinction, that crucial difference between helping someone and helping yourself to someone's money. Mrs. Richardson finally understood, Finally saw what I'd seen 2 years ago, what thousands of elderly people see too late. That trust was being exploited. That help was actually harm. That family loyalty was being weaponized against family members. Mr. Patterson, file the report. James stood up fast. Mom, you don't mean that. I'm your son. You're a thief. And I'm not going to enable you anymore. Brian Torres filed the fraud report that afternoon. Local police arrested James Richardson March 4th, charged with elder financial abuse and theft. Bail set at $50,000. James made bail, paid with money his mother had given him months ago, money intended for home repairs, money he'd spent on himself, money she'd unknowingly provided for his defense against charges of stealing from her. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Mrs. Richardson visited my office again, March 10th, alone this time. No son, no theft, just an elderly woman who'd chosen consequences over enabling. Thank you, she said. You don't need to thank me. Yes, I do. You showed me that loving my son means holding him accountable, not protecting him from responsibility. I wish I'd learned that lesson years ago. You learned it when it mattered. That's enough. She left with information about the protection program, about support groups for elderly fraud victims, about resources for rebuilding financial security, about ways to protect herself going forward, about how to set boundaries that kept relationships without enabling theft. She wasn't alone, wasn't abandoned, wasn't isolated. She was protected, actually protected, not by enabling crime, but by stopping it. That's the lesson I spent 2 years building, the lesson that cost me my relationship with my daughter, the lesson that separated me from my grandchildren, the lesson that some people called heartless. The lesson was simple. Love without boundaries is enabling. Family without accountability is exploitation. Trust without verification is vulnerability. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let people face the consequences of their choices, even when those people are family. Especially when those people are family. I'm George Patterson, 72 years old, president of Regional Trust Bank, father of a federal inmate, grandfather to children I'll probably never see again, creator of a protection program that saved 247 families from what destroyed mine, and I'd make the same choices today. Every single one. Because some lessons are worth the cost, some principles are worth the sacrifice, some values are worth losing everything to defend. Emily will be released from prison in 2028, 4 years and 3 months from now. She'll be 51 years old, convicted felon, limited career prospects, broken relationships, massive restitution debt, life permanently changed by choices she made between 2021 and 2023. Maybe she'll rebuild. Maybe she'll prove the person who stole from me is gone. Maybe someday we'll have a conversation where forgiveness matters. Maybe. But even if we don't, I'll know I did the right thing, not the easy thing, not the comfortable thing, not the thing that preserved family relationships, the right thing, the thing that sent a message, the thing that said stealing has consequences. The thing that proved love sometimes means letting people fall so they learn to stand differently. If you're facing something similar, if someone you love is stealing from you, if family loyalty is being used as justification for exploitation, remember this: enabling doesn't help. Silence doesn't protect. Looking the other way doesn't preserve relationships. It just teaches that crime is acceptable when committed by family. And that lesson destroys everyone it touches. Document everything, report everything, prosecute everything, no exceptions, no justifications, no family passes. Because sometimes the most loving thing a parent can do is let their child face consequences. Even when those consequences mean prison, even when it costs everything, even when you're sitting alone in your office watching the sunset, wondering if you made the right choice. You did. Every time you chose accountability over enabling, you did. Every time you chose consequences over comfort, you did. Every time you chose what was right over what was easy, you did. And that matters. More than relationships, more than family peace, more than anything. Because some lessons can only be taught through consequences, and some people only learn through loss. This is how a bank president prosecuted his own daughter. This is how $1,023,000 in theft became 7 years in prison. This is how family loyalty became federal crime, one documented transaction at a time.